Right. Hello there. Welcome to Dharma Science Radio. My name is Ian. I've been in my human design experiment for about 7 years now. I'm a 1-3 emotional inner authority generator, and I love talking about this stuff. And today we're joined by a special guest, a friend of mine who I've worked with in the past and look forward to talking to today. So, my friend, if you would kindly introduce yourself.
People call me Talis, and I'm a 1-3 mental projector, if you know what that means. If not, it means I'm a projector who only has ajna and head defined. And I'm in my experiments since almost, no, it's 7 years now since I had my reading. It was in June, 7 years ago, I guess. And yeah, I'm trial and erroring my way through studying, teaching, creating stuff. And yeah, I know you, Ian, from the HTC, basically. We had some communication there and idea sharing and this and that. And I felt there were some ideas or projects that were really on the same wavelength, so to say. And I'm happy
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
here.
Wonderful, wonderful. I had a lot of fun in that project with the HTC. We had that opportunity to gather with people and talk about our experience, like was it once a week or something like that? And having that time to dive in and share with people live was really rewarding and fun.
Hmm.
And so I'd like to just begin our conversation today with if you could tell the story of how you got started in human design.
It's basically a funny story. So 2017, it was almost like on the day of my Saturn return, I lost everything, to make it short. So I had a partner, I had a business, I had an apartment, a car, I had all of those things. And literally overnight, so to say, it all disappeared. Saturn knocked me down, so to say. It's okay, that's it. New path, new life. Show me what you got. And it was pretty tough in the beginning, but I felt already before that there was a kind of calling in me to go more into some alternative route in spirituality, because in spirituality there's so many different things. So I felt very called by shamanism, because I suffered from panic attacks and fear attacks and all of this stuff pretty severely for almost 2 years every day. And those things, those perspectives of shamanism helped me, especially the Polynesian shamanism. So this was what I wanted to study more, but not just in books, but I wanted to go out and meet people. And somehow I got an invitation. I wasn't a human design yet, but I had an invitation by a frequency scientist. It was really a freak, and he was from north of Germany. So I'm born and raised in Germany, living in Portugal now. And he invited me to come over because he saw that I have some graphical skills, and his topic was interesting for me. So I was like, okay, let's go there. To make the story start, I went on a journey with a backpack and 35 euros, and somehow money came, invitations came. I could sleep in places. I lived very minimalistically, and I think it was in the same year, 2017, that human design knocked at my door like once or twice, and I was like, go away with this. I have already my direction, and I'm stubborn. I have a defined ashna. So I was like, I wasn't open for it, so to say. The third time it came through a manifestor friend from Austria, because I follow his YouTube. He makes this interesting experiments and stuff. And he was talking about, oh yeah, I'm a manifestor, and this means that, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I checked it out. I was on this homepage that he recommended, and I wasn't a manifestor. And I was super annoyed by that. How can I not be a manifestor? I don't want to be a projector. I don't want to be this and blah, blah, blah. So again, I pushed it away. I was like, yeah, that's not for me. But funnily enough, at one point I was somewhere in Germany. There was not really a clear invitation. I didn't really know how to decide, because what I used to do then was kinesiology, using the arm and the muscles, or flipping a coin, or throwing like oracle runes or whatever, something to make a decision. That was kind of my way. And then there was this invitation from a woman from somewhere in Germany, and she initiated me by gifting me a reading, almost forcing me a bit, because I was there then after a while, and she said, please take it. Just what can you lose? I was like, okay, I do it. And I received this reading from a reflector who also learned from Ra, and he made it in English, and I was already, English was good enough to understand all of this. And I was totally shocked. I was like, how is this possible? I was even calling my brother afterwards, like, did you talk with somebody, or did you give some information? Because I'm very doubtful. I'm not somebody who's just easily believing stuff. And that kind of made me intrigued. And my basic drive or motivation in the beginning was to debunk it. Like, okay, where's the flaw? Where's the crack that seems that it's all a bit shaky and not really stable? And this guy invited me to become somebody who studies human design, or somebody who can at least at one moment give readings. He said, please take this information. So he gave me some material from Ra and stuff. And I studied those things, draw my chart 100 times, and checked all those things, checked other people out. Because also in the reading, he said, it's easier to focus on other people and compare, so to say, and feel what is in you, what is there. And that's how the journey began.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's awesome. I know the feeling, like as a fellow 1-3, about trying to debunk it. Like, my experience was very kind of direct and in your face, because I had people around me who were all kind of practicing in their own way, and I was brought in by another generator, and it was a total vibe situation. And yet I still found myself, I would listen to Ron, and he'd say something and I would just argue against him. It's like, no way, that does not make any sense. It can't be like that because of this, that, and this and that, whatever, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. And yet when you keep studying, it's just like, I'm starting to see how whenever I started to argue against him, there was this, well, I know that's not what he really meant. He just glossed over it. He was just fifth line hammering in a universal, it's always like this, I'm certain it's always like this. And then it's like, well, it turns out every always has an exception.
Yeah.
And so there was something I remember you had told me in the past, a story around an experience you had with bees or a beehive. Could you share something about that?
This was I had I had many near-death experiences, funnily enough. Third line maybe or something, and 25, gate 25 in my incarnation cross, getting shocked. But there was one particular experience I had. However it happened, I had this near-death experience, pretty intense, weird, couldn't really categorize it. And that was before 2017. This was
Oh, yes, yes.
2013, I guess. That also sparked the interest of shamanism or spiritual things. I grew up with parents who were spiritual, and they did some stuff and worked with things, but it was not my main focus. I knew it, but it was not like that I studied it or was super interested all the time. But anyway, I had this moment after this thing happened, and obviously there was ambulance and blah blah blah, and everything is good. And I was like, but I don't feel good. There's something weird. No, you're just hyperventilating. I was like, no, I was out of my body. No, don't worry. Did you drink too much? I was like, no, But so then for 7 days, I guess it was really 7 days, I was sitting outside in the garden. My family had a house, and we had a nice garden close to the forest. And I sat there, sun went up, I went out, sun went down, I went in. I couldn't really sleep a lot. I couldn't really drink or eat. It's almost like, it was like a fasting, I was super sensitive. And it's like, if you ever felt like a panic attack and you go through it, there is this calm moment of peace where everything is surrendered. This is usually what gets you out of a panic attack, to fully surrender. And I had this state for like the 7 days, like really long time duration. And I saw nature in a very different way. It was kind of like a psychedelic experience, to be honest. I took
Yeah.
some psychedelics in my life, not a lot, but I tried some things, and it was similar, but it was more organic, or how can I say, it was more somatic. It was more coming from myself. It was not un, artificial put in or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I saw those bees really going through blue tubes around the garden, and I saw how they have a system, that they have a kind of logic in this, how they fly, and what they do and how they communicate. And it was really fascinating because I never thought about this. And after this, a few years later, I came across a book. I don't know if it's in English too, but it was about beehives. And in this book, there was I don't know the English word for somebody who beekeeper. Is it beekeeper?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There was a beekeeper, and he said, if you put bees in a specific order, if you put the beehives in specific order, the frequency is created that can be healing, or can help with depression, can help with this and this. And I was really like, wow, that's so interesting, because I was so drawn to the bees and to this noise, what they did when I was sitting in this garden. It really helped me to go through this rather intense time, because I had this experience and I didn't feel stable or nothing at all. I was really like, oh, that's too much. And, family, my mother was sick, my brother need help, father went off somewhere. It was really like too much. So yeah, that was something, but that was way before human design. That was some kind of initiation into something. It maybe brought me here where I am now, to have an understanding, or I bring some fundamental understanding of reality into this human design thing that I study and apply to my life. Not even apply, but I observe that it's there.
Yeah, right. It's
Yeah.
so funny hearing about the terminology and the way we communicate things. And it's almost like, at the very least in English, there's this second nature to apply. Oh, I made this happen. I did this. This was what I wanted to happen. This is what I made happen.
No.
And describing different experiences one could have, like with psychedelics or drugs. I remember Ross speaking about how it was all preparation for his real initiation experience. And when you're talking about blue tubes that these bees are flying through, I find that really interesting, because it makes me think about, there's this thing called like the blue shift or the red shift that
Okay.
has to do with speed and movement in physics. And like, if you're going faster or if you're going slower, there can be a shift in the color around these things.
Mm,
And so I'm almost getting this sense that it's almost like you're seeing into the motion, the geometry of the movement, or the aura of the bees, and you're seeing a little bit more of the color than what people may naturally see or normally see. Because, I mean, we only see a certain spectrum on the electromagnetic wavelength. I think it was like 400 to 720 nanometers is the little bandwidth we have, and there's infinity below and infinity above. That's all influencing us. And
yes.
it's really interesting. And this notion that bees, especially if they're arranged in a certain way, the buzz, the vibration from them could be healing. It makes me think about like a cat's purr. I've heard that
Mm,
when cats are purring, there's a healing quality to that. I've always been interested in the vibration of things, like this notion that there is something before this obvious physical world.
for
And
sure, for sure.
yeah, I was definitely drawn into shamanism myself strongly as well. And finding something that, to me, it felt more reliable once I heard about my inner authority and type strategy. And I was given that body graph that had a picture of my make and model with like such a detail. It's like, how does this piece of paper know me better than I knew myself?
True.
Like,
Yeah.
there's something going on here that's so profound. And once I started to actually step into that process of trusting my body for making decisions, it just became this whole experience. Like you said, like, I made it happen. Well, more like I witnessed it happening or not.
Yeah.
And so now that I've started to witness my body happening, it's really profound. I've got a strategic, active body, and I have all four of my motors defined together as one of my splits, one of my halves.
No.
And then the other half is this 1648 that's always trying to communicate the depth of genuine value. It's like, what can I experiment with? What can I identify with to provide some genuine, supportive sharing?
Yeah.
And it's been incredible to watch the journey one step at a time, because so many things have fallen away and so many things have simply taken on new form. Like, I used to be able to force myself to do things in a different way. I used to follow other people's yoga flows. I used to be able to follow their breathwork practice and these different things. And I used to sing all these different mantras to all these other gods. And then when my inner authority came online, it's like, well, my body does its own yoga. Sometimes I'm called to a mantra. I can really enjoy some good breathing. And yet my mind can't force my body to do what my mind thinks is important anymore.
Exactly. This is really where it, leads us when experimenting with human design. Not just, there's other things too, but with human design, for sure. It's becoming like, I tend to compare it with, all of us, we drove to work one day and we wonder, how did I get here? It's like, it was like automatic almost. And it's a bit like this, but you are aware that something is driving. So it's one level higher, so to say, or lower, doesn't matter which direction. But it's one layer beneath or beyond this automatism that you can then observe. And it can be hilarious to see yourself doing things where you feel ashamed or guilty, or you cannot say this, you cannot do this. And the funniest thing is always when other people come and say, you cannot say this, you cannot be like that. And then you're, for sure, I mean, I just did. It's possible.
Right.
It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's incredible, because I know the feeling. I was just talking with a friend of mine, and there's this notion of, well, my mouth said one thing. It's like, yeah, I'm interested. I'd love to do that. Let's go do that. And then the opportunity shows up and it's just like, yeah, no chance. Not going to happen. And being able to witness it happen. Like, for me, that was one of the most profound moments in my experiment. I don't even have like a specific exact moment I can pin to when it first happened. And yet it became this thing where it's like, hold on, there's a disconnection here. The force that does the talking is not the same force that moves the body. It's like the body makes its own decisions, and the talking is like a separate entity. And I found for myself as a split, that definitely was kind of like a thing I can observe kind of reliably. And so I'm curious, could you share something about what it's like having so much openness in the chart?
The thing is, I cannot really tell you how it is with a lot of definitions. So, I lack the true comparison because I can only see or sense the amplification of it most of the times, because I take it in and automatically gets amplified. It's natural for these receptors to do, or magnify, if you will. But in my experience, first of all, it's pretty hard for people to grasp me, because there is nothing energetic that makes me. It's not like, oh, this feels very electric, or this feels emotional, or this feels stressful, or grounding, or whatever the case may be. On the other side, I feel like I can sense a lot of things before people sense it. Like, I see this with my partner. She's a manifesting generator. I know before she is frustrated that she is frustrated, before she's realizing it. And of course, I need to shut up because I already had my, got some of my energetic stuff anyway. But when I'm invited, or when I'm asked, or when I'm invited, or if there is an openness and I share this, it helps the other a lot to see it. And then the moment you see it, what usually happens is you have a possibility of accepting it, and that transcends it. So it becomes easier, or it becomes more clear. So that's something for sure. But I mean, without human design, I was really like Kirby from Nintendo, who can sub up those things and becomes another thing. I really felt like I'm going here, I'm this one. I'm going there, I'm that one. And sometimes I felt so melancholic and sad, and sometimes even depressed, because there were people that I really loved that said, can you not just decide who you are? And I was trying, but I couldn't. I couldn't just be fixed in this. I couldn't just say, oh, okay. And then I tried, obviously. I tried to only be this, and it hurts. And
Yeah, it never works. It never works
I
out.
know.
I know at least a little bit of that pull myself from being an undefined G center. I can get pulled around in all kinds of different directions, and it's been really profound watching how it's like my mind and body, like there's a motion, there's a movement, there's this whole energy system that if I'm around a person, it's like with this unconscious Saturn in the 13-1, I have this empathy. My body has this empathy. It's like I pick up on the direction in life you're going, and that's where I'm going too, because I'm right there with you. And so there have been profound experiences of being around a person and like being 100% like committed to the situation, and then getting into my own aura and witnessing this like powerful, almost like a gravity well, like this pull that's like either pushing or pulling me like away from a whole movement where I was like, wait, I thought I wanted that. And now I'm getting upset at them because they wanted that for me because of however I'm interpreting that. And all this processing going on in my head relative to this stuff.
Yes. It's also interesting to watch when you go from one field to another. For example, you hang out somewhere with a friend on the beach or in a bar or I don't know, and you hang out with them for some hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. So you really get some conditioning, you get some flavoring. And then you go home and you're alone and there's no other being, no cat, no dog, no tree, nothing. You're just in your own bubble. And then how you slowly transition back into this openness, that can be so interesting. It can be fascinating to observe this. It can be also, for me, sometimes it can be super uncomfortable, especially when there is a spleen definition involved. Wow, it can be so uncomfortable that it's like, oh, I need to, and then my mind's okay. You need to drink, you need to eat, you need to do this, you smoke something, relax, do this. It keeps on trying to hold on or compensate for the state that I experienced and maybe my mind liked, or not self-themes of feeling secure, safe with the open spleen, for example. And I see that this has all different durations. Some things take an hour, some things I need, I don't know, 2 days to really get out of it, to really let it go, to get clean again in that center.
That brings me to a kind of a question then, something that pops into my head. Does it feel like perhaps there's a different maybe clearance rate or deconditioning rate for each center? Or does it feel more like it's connected with the experience than the center?
I have two ideas about this. One idea is that obviously there is stuff that I hold on more because it's I don't know, so society conditioning or whatever conditioning, like psychologically speaking, that is harder to let go, or to accept. And the other thing is, maybe it has to do with how many gates do you have at a center? Is it completely open? It can also be, if you spend your whole life, or let's say if you spend your whole first 15 to 18, 20 years with a mother who had this, maybe it's harder to let go because this was always there and you think it's you, and but I cannot let this go because it's part of me. You were conditioned for decades. I'm not so sure, but it would be interesting to investigate this. But for this, you need some, I don't know, like minimum 50 people who really have an awareness for this and write stuff down.
Yes, I can't tell you.
Very interesting.
I can't tell you how many times I've thought about, I just want 100 people, I want 1,000 people, 10,000 people, and let's all talk about our determination. Let's practice this, let's figure it out. It's so fun. And what you were talking about,
one day,
right? It's on the way. And what you were talking about there reminded me of Ra's experience of looking into his own parental conditioning, and he found out, oh, geez, I've been dating my mother. I found my mother's chart in somebody else. And so he told somebody, because he was like, hold on, every time you find a new girl, you're literally dating your mother. And so his friend got so mad at him because it's like, oh, now you've ruined it for me. Now I have to check in with you for every single person I want to date just to make sure I'm not dating my mother.
Yeah, I remember him saying this in some lecture. No,
Yeah,
it's true. It's true. It's really true. I always see aspects in all of my partners that I had, the aspects of my siblings, my mother, my father. There is stuff that we just like because we know it, you know.
yeah.
We already learned how to deal with that or how to take it at least. So it's easier in a way. But I gotta
Mm-hmm,
say, this
mm-hmm.
time my partner, this was not initiated. This was really, I would say, the first time in my whole experiment where it was invited, where it was um I forgot the word, but for both correct.
Yeah, like the recognition was mutual.
Yeah, mutual, that's the word, yeah. So, and it's incredible how different this relationship is than to all the relationships I had before. It's
And you mentioned earlier of you notice your partner, the
yes,
energy, the
yeah,
sacral motor. It's like, oh, there's frustration in there. And you learned, oh, I'm not going to interrupt that. I'm not going to get in the way of that unless
yeah.
there's some kind of what recognition, invitation of I need your perspective first.
I fail for sure, but most of the times I can do it. It has something to do with my experience, and I also recommend this all projectors. I mean it's generalized, but still, don't be helpful, because the
Mhm.
moment you try to be helpful, you're screwed, because it's not invited. And even though you can be correct and it can be helpful and it can, I don't know, mutate and transform and whatnot, it's I compare it to being a time traveler. As a mental projector, often I felt like a time traveler, and I love time travel sci-fi movies. This is really my thing, because I cannot interrupt with the timeline except I'm invited. Otherwise, everything goes wrong. So you can take this
Yeah.
metaphor a bit for how delicate it is to be a projector in this world, and that you have your mission, you have your purpose, you have your recognition, but you need to be ready for it too. If you're always
Yeah.
busy initiating, you cannot even see who's recognizing you. So
I remember there was an experience I had in the house where I was initiated into all this. Someone had an experience wherein we were hanging out in the living room and they were sitting in the couch and I could tell that they had gone into a total trance. They were in a zone, they were in an experience for a while. And by the time they came back, they were like, "Whoa, I just time traveled." And they're a projector, like a 5-1 projector. And something that I really appreciate about that is when I got into the I Ching, when I got into the I Ching, this book of changes,
yeah,
and I started to see that, well, what is change? Change is a measurement over time. So it's a measurement of time, basically.
no,
And then we have the I Ching configured through the body graph. We have all the various changes that can occur, the way in which energy can relate with itself, and we see it in the body graph. And so then, like as a projector, it's like you have this eyesight, you have this penetrative capacity to see into the nature of time that most people, they're not seeing quite into the threaded eye of the needle, if you know what I mean. They're not seeing into that little thing because they're so caught up in different strategies and all these strategies for survival and all this conditioning that's been laid upon us, that now being able to see time in a new way, like
mhm,
with all those open centers of yours, I can only imagine how much time travel can go on in there because there's so much wisdom. There's so many different portals into totally different dimensions that in a way have nothing to do with you. And yet it has everything to do with being human and what it
mhm,
means to become wise in one of these bodies. Like all I can learn from primarily is direction in life, concepts, thinking about things, and then inspiration. So I'm always going into these three dimensions. Like I'm always being inspired by what direction a new concept could take me in.
yeah,
Like when I was younger, I was always into this law of attraction kind of stuff, manifestation and all this. And yet, no matter what I thought, it never changed my life. I could do as much as I could to try and think this or that way.
yeah,
And then the next day, I'm an open ajna. I'm going to think a new way. because I'm going to think a new way, because it's not a consistent thinking process.
Mm.
And so being given, yeah.
I mean, law of attraction, that it's just, how can I say this? But it's just taken by pop culture and made into some cult-ish money machine. But the basis of it, the law of attraction just means what you are, you will attract for sure. And that for me is true. I mean, if I
100%.
am if I am in a good mood in the moment, for sure, even human design mechanically wise, looking at it, for sure you will see more people who are in a good mood. Your whole perspective is different. So it's always just about that it's not washed down or just interpreted through all this vanity and greed and ignorance. The purest essence of it is totally fine, you know. And I have this with a lot of spiritual concepts. I mean, I dove into all of those stuff deeply, you know. A lot of these things are really universal truths that can be inspirational. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Because even I can still find, like every once in a while, I'll listen to maybe some Abraham Hicks or something like that. She's one that I've really enjoyed because I even looked at her chart and I believe she's what's that, a 63-4, 43-23. And so I'm like, see, logical insight to structure reality, to give answers for the collective on how
Right.
to think about these things. And when I think about the law of attraction and you attract what you are, it brings me right back into the monopole. It's like, well, the monopole only attracts. We're basically getting in touch with things that are everywhere and all at once. And it's been really beautiful to see how everything has an essence of truth within it.
Depending on where you stand, who you are, when you are, which perspective. I don't know. There was this when I was younger. I was skateboarding. I still would like to do it, but my back is too old for it. Let's see. Maybe this summer I will do it a bit.
Maybe
But
some more yoga first.
there were these two brothers from Australia who wanted to challenge Tony Hawk when he was in his high prime time, and
Oh, yeah.
they actually almost did it. I mean, it didn't work out because of I don't know what, but he was pretty good. This one of the brothers, and he in one interview he said, you know, there's your truth, there's my truth, and there's the truth. So it's a flexible thing. It's a truth is like water, you know. It's not like that. It's always fitting. It fits, but it's not always the same, you know. And it doesn't matter. At the end, it doesn't matter because it doesn't matter how much truth you know. You will go and you will lose all the truth anyway. So
Right. It's got me, there's a kind of a revelation or a seeing into something I haven't seen before that recently happened. And I got into perceiving the nature of, say, the throat center as opposed to the sacral center as what I call expressions of self.
Mhm.
And so I've seen something wherein, for example, I like to call the heart center, the ego center, I'm beginning to see it as a third pressure center. And I know Ra never said that. However, to me, it feels like a third pressure. It feels like a pressure from within compared to the pressure from above in the head and the pressure from below in the root. And from that point, we have the three awareness centers, the spleen, the solar plex, and the ajna. And then what's left but those three penta centers? And I like to call them centers of self in that sense. And so I was getting this realization that the sacral would be the positive end of the magnet because it's generating, it's pushing outward, it's generating, regenerating more life, it's everywhere, it's going out.
Okay.
And the throat center appears to me as being fundamentally negative in its orientation. And I don't mean that in a bad way, of course. I mean it simply as the negative pole of the magnet, because everything wants to reach the throat. It all wants to reach manifestation. And what happens in manifestation? Well, it changes into something else. and it changes into something else. It's always changing into something else, or it's dead and gone and doesn't exist. It was just a manifestation.
I guess you just try to bring in the concept of yin yang into the centers. It can be interesting to look at this, because the lines also, first line, for example, is yin, second line yang. So maybe there is something to find. Maybe we would need to look at all the gates in a center and see if it's more yin or yang from the first line, the foundation of, this could be a way to see, is the sacral more yang? Is it more to, be creative
Right.
and express? And is the throat maybe more yin to receive? Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
And I've got another, at least part of the theory, which is what brought me to this perception, is that, well, for one, the ajna, the mind, is never the authority.
No.
And what does the mind do? Well, it connects to the head for inspiration, pressure to think, and it connects to the throat for communication. And so it's like, well, we're always communicating things, and communications are beautiful, and yet they never control the life in correctness, those communications. And I think it's because the communication is like a blade. It's like a knife from the mind, cutting things apart, splitting them in two, seeing the differences, cutting them into smaller pieces, seeing the difference, seeing how those pieces interrelate. So there's like this fundamental negative quality around conceptualization thinking, and that brings me to the communication of it. Because if we get lost in the communication of it, then it's like we're lost in a negative field, wherein, like, say, as a generator, it's almost kind of, quote, easier, unquote, for me to trust my body, because my body has an inbuilt yes, no. And it's, in the sense, even if it's a no, that's a positive, because it's an information going forward of, this is directly what it is. This is the truth to follow. And it doesn't matter what you think about it. It doesn't matter what the negativity has to say, because the life force energy is saying, this is where new creation is. This is fertile ground. This is life.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's actually a miracle, the ajna going to the throat. It's metamorphosis. It translates light, inner sound, visuals into language. That's wow. I mean, as far as I know, we are the only species who, by definition, have language. For sure, animals make their sounds and they maybe communicate, but it's not language by definition that can be repeatable and extendable infinitely. You can say, he came to Tom. She said he came to Tom. You can extend it infinitely. This is one part of the definition of what language is.
Mm-hmm.
And that, shows the infinite possibilities of the mind too. And communication has this beautiful word inside, commune, To commune with each other needs to go through communication, because communication is coming not only, but also from our mental perspective, how we see the world, hear the world. The mind is translating all of this, or at least the ajna, this awareness. It's not the spleen that gives you images and gives you sounds and gives you this. Not really. It's also not the solar plexus awareness that gives you all of this. Inner vision and outer vision and acoustics, this is created up here. And we are kind of stuck there as a species, because obviously there's already more to explore, and people experiment with this already. There's this telepathic tapes and whatnot, and people who can see without eyes, and there is a lot of stuff going on in this world. So there is stuff. I have, for example, my cognition is feeling. I really feel things. And it's weird. I always had this weird thing where I walk somewhere and there's a person and I cannot breathe in that moment. I don't want to take in the frequency. This for me has totally to do with feeling. I don't know. It's I cannot take in the pheromone frequency. I cannot take in the Wi-Fi of somebody or the frequency of their voice or something. It's sometimes I'm so overstimulated, like somebody's on the phone and I can feel the person on the other phone is like, wow, this was a very bad whatever conversation. Oh yeah, how do you know? I don't know. I just felt it. So there is much more than mine, but eventually the ajna is the one thing that is connected to all. If you look at the first quarter of the wheel, the first quarter of the wheel
Yeah.
is the mind quarter, initiation, but there's all the solar plexus gates, almost all. There's only one in the other, I guess. It's the mind takes it in. We think emotional, even though emotions are in the first essence are feelings that we try to emote, express, and then we give them a label. Oh, that's sad. Oh, that's happy. Joyful. A lot of words for different chemistry.
Right,
Funny.
and it's so beautiful. It's so
Yeah.
helpful for communication and understanding these pieces, for understanding these pieces of the whole. And yet, if we get identified with those labels, then we confuse the map, the language, for the truth, for the territory, for the thing itself. And I
Yeah.
love being able to see the difference and then still continue to explore. Like I've been going deeper into my studies with PHS and rave psychology and seeing how, say, the ajna does not actually produce cognitive data like the spleen and the solar plex do. Because Ra was saying the spleen is producing this cognitive data, the solar plex is producing this cognitive data, and the ajna is a pointer. It's a reference going, oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. Look at this. Look at that. Look at this. It's like the absolute nothing itself. And because it's nothing, it has the potential to see everything because it's everywhere.
It's a time traveler. It can go into the future, into the past, anywhere. It can even create stuff that you think it's true. It's crazy, It's really it's a dream machine.
And that's an interesting one as well. The dream machine, the notion that the dream time can influence us as well. Like when I saw that the Dream Rave, so when we sleep and we're laying down, we have a 5-centered form we're working with. It's
Yeah.
almost like, wow, that's the shaman space right there. That's where the shamans were working, in that 5-centered, kind of like even Neanderthal reminiscent or mammalian form.
Yes.
So it's almost like, in my perspective, when I dream, it's like having a taste or a touch with the ancestors and getting to see a little bit more of what's going on. And yeah, what we were saying earlier about the different energy centers and the notion that maybe one center could take longer to decondition than another, or maybe the experience itself, or maybe it's the parents and the families that determine the conditioning we want. And then there's also the dream rave, wherein basically every one of us most likely has some kind of a weak point that's been kind of given by that. And even discovering exactly where that weak point is and how it operates, it takes a little nuance to pay attention and to see, which
It's
I
a
find so
very
fascinating.
it's a
Yeah.
simple experiment with this, The moment you wake up and you think, I have to, I must, I could, I should, don't do it. This is the programming, because it happens so fast. We wake up not even fully there. Oh, I should do this. No, you don't do anything. And it can also be, oh, I should really drink some water. No, wait, because then you will really see what is the programming that happens at night, and it drives people. It drives all of us. Wow, it's crazy, You get conditioned in the sleep to be something, to do something specific, and then you think, oh, that was my idea. I had the idea, and I go into the world and make it. It's more like you're just a vessel, You're this. It's crazy.
It is,
So
it is. And it's so beautiful at the same time. Like when I heard, there were a few different keynotes I'd heard from Ra, because I've as a 1-3, I can never stop studying, it seems, because whenever I stop, it's just taking a break, and eventually I'll need to study more.
yes,
And
it's true.
this notion of the ego, because ego has position as both an energy center here on like the surface, and then it's also one of the 5 bases of reality. And hearing Ross say that it's the job of the ego to interpret the neutrino stream into a sense of self. for me, that was so meaningful. That's so full of rich meaning. Like even as a defined ego being myself, because I can't say there's a one-to-one connection. The ego center is the ego base. Obviously, they're different things.
Yeah.
And yet, there's always been this sense from before I was born, or from when the moment I was born, like from when I was a child, I've always had certain almost like premonitions or certain feelings about life and certain things I've always known as true that I can't always easily explain. And then human design comes around and starts validating this stuff like, yep, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this.
No.
Like I remember I studied the life cycles program a little bit, and I was looking into my own cycles, and I had to burst into tears because of how profound it's like. I think it was either my Uranus opposition or my Chiron return. There was looking at this chart after having studied with Ra about it and getting this sense of, it's like everything I've ever wanted, everything I've ever hoped for, everything I've ever known truly belongs to me. For some reason, I looked at that chart and I could see it. It was just like, yes, it's all coming and it's down the road, you know. There's lots of work to do in the meantime. You know, I'm an ego being, I got to prove it. And I've always had the sense of, I got a lot of work to do. Since I started waking up, it's like, yep, I'm here on Earth. I've got a lot of work to do. I want to do it.
Yes. With breaks, please. But yeah.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because with an ego to emotional to root to sacral, it's like when I'm doing the work that really lights me up, or when I'm doing what I really have to do, I can go forever until the job is done. And if something doesn't light me up, there's no energy for it. It's like I just can't.
Yeah. And you should not. It's also another basic, obvious thing, you know. If you cannot do it, why you try to do it?
Yeah.
We try always to force ourselves to do stuff. But sometimes, I mean, I have a creative background, you know. I worked as an art director. So, you know, you cannot force being creative, for example. You cannot use, you even see it in the body graph, you know, the individual circuit that has to do with creativity, for example. There is no defined heart ego center. It's not connected to the spark of being kissed by the muse or whatever. And this really, you know, sometimes to just accept you cannot do it, laying down, looking at the wall, helps that you maybe even be able to do it, you know. But first you need to really let go of this forceful idea of, if you do not, then this could happen. It's not a good idea, you know. And I mean, I have the 11.5. I know what's a good idea and what not, you know.
That's good to know, you know, to be able to really see like, oh, that doesn't lead to success. That leads to bitterness. That's not a right way to frame it.
Yeah.
Like,
It's also, you know, misunderstanding. Success, people always think it's just material success. It's not. It's a sensation. It's a sensation. You know, to wake up in the morning being healthy, feeling good is a success too. It's you know, it's a spirit, so to say.
Absolutely.
It's not just material success.
Right. And it's not like it's something only projectors could ever experience.
No, for sure not. We are all.
Right.
It's like, just for you, it's not your main job.
Right. It's not what I'm here for. Like when I discovered satisfaction exists consciously, it was like, wow. I
want to be satisfied.
Yes. I felt really kind of blessed and lucky because, you know, I've had my fair share of challenges in life. I've had my fair share of frustration. I've felt bitterness and anger and disappointment, and I've gone through the ringer in my own way.
Yeah.
And yet, when I look at it, moment to moment, over time, and in the past, I've always been supported. I've always actually have what I needed. I've always, on some level or another, maintained access to my satisfaction. It's like my body would naturally, since I was a child, I would naturally interact less with somebody who robs me of my satisfaction rather than succumb to losing that for whatever they want.
Yeah, of course. Claro.
I think that's part of this four motors defined together. It's just like automatic autopilot is just like, nope, no satisfaction here. Don't care. I'm out. Got to do something else.
But this is
And
so hard to understand for generators. Wow, I see them and it's like, but I have to do this. No, but if I don't do it, yeah, but do it if you feel a yes for it. If not even
yes,
feel, fuck feel. It's about, do you have a physical, somatic, energetic response to it? You can sense it in your muscles. You can sense this. This is not a, some spiritual something. It's not a mental thing. It's really
right.
physical.
It's not just a woo-woo. It's not a concept in the head. It's an
No.
actual muscle in the body. It's the source of life directing you forward into what you love.
Yes.
And it's really such a profound thing. Like, no matter what the mind has to say, we're so used to listening to the mind and taking those thoughts seriously. And then I happen to be a 1648. And something I like to do is, even though I'm a 16-3, I look at the 16-1 to see what the foundation of that entire theme is.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, what's the foundation of identifying with an experiment? How do you actually identify with an experiment? Well, you got to be willing to be delusional. You got
yes.
to identify with something temporary and try it out.
You have to daydream.
Yes, you have to be willing to engage with that. You have to be willing to lay in your bed for 5 hours and stare at the ceiling in order for your head to open up. And all of a sudden, you're receptive. You're in that receptive mode. You receive something, and there it is. I didn't make it happen. I didn't force it to happen. Like I remember as a child, especially with guilt motivation, I could really wrap myself into the pressure of needing to get this done. Like I need to do my schoolwork. I need to write this paper, and I give myself like an ulcer over the stress over all this stuff.
Mm.
And then I see I have a receptive personality. I have a strategic design. My body will handle itself. My body will make its own decisions. My mind isn't here to figure out any of that stuff. Because
Yeah,
whenever the mind is telling the body what to do, it's based on a limited perspective. And not only that, the specific limited perspective exists for the benefit of the other. It's here
exactly.
for outer authority.
Exactly. It's my job. I'm here to be an outer authority for sure. With only this, I mean, everybody can be, but I'm really made for this. And I love
Yes.
it. I love to teach. I love to share. I love to, educate or stuff. Has to do with my chart too. I have the 45 two times, and I have the 11-4. I have the 17-4, and it's the Aquarius, and it's the Pisces teacher. Yeah, it's so beautiful to look at your own chart over time. Every 3-6 months, you really sit down, you look at it, you take a glass of wine or a hot cocoa or whatever you like, and you really just sit there and look at it, draw it, go touch it. Like, what is there? What do you know about this? Wow, and it can be so insightful to really see it. And even if you're not abstract like me, who looks back in the past to find meaning, you can even go and look at it logically. You can even go there and touch the things if you're tribal. There's always ways for it, but it opens up. It's like it speaks to you. It was so funny in the first 2-3 years. I would think every year I looked at my chart. I was like, oh, I had this gate. I didn't even know that I had this. It's like it never appeared to me. It was just hidden. And then it's just, interesting. I have this too. I have that. Wow. And then it all comes together piece by piece, and you can see it better and you can sense it. You get a feeling for it, and you don't try to change it anymore. It's the acceptance of yourself. It's the guide for living your life correctly as yourself with your own mythology. I mean, wow, what a privilege, eh?
Yes, absolutely. The living mythology, because we really have that opportunity to step into a depth of intelligence that is so great. It's like it's literally science fiction.
Yes.
And yet the reason why we think science fiction is because we're so wrapped up in thinking that guilt is a transferred hope, you know? It's guilt of, oh, I can't fix it, let me fix it, oh, I made it worse.
Yeah.
We think innocence is desire. This is what I really want. Trust me, I know who I am. This is what I really want. We're so caught up in the distorted field and the lacking of intelligence version of everything that when you start to see it for yourself, it's like, holy moly. The level of detail to reality is so great. It's like it's so perfect. I can't possibly keep up with all of this myself.
I often said, excuse me, I often said, switch everything 180. Turn it around, flip it around, and you will. This is more truth than the other, so to say. It's closer to it, at least. Yeah, it's the same with emotions. The emotional people that I know, and when you observe them, when you're with them, and they represent emotionalness, it's very different of what we have an idea about emotions, because what we think emotions are is the amplified, distorted version of it. It's the same with inspiration. I am a sending, affecting inspiration hub. Somebody sits next to me. Oh, I have an idea. By the way, it was maybe mine, but you can have it. No, just joking. But it's very different how people think, oh, wow, this must be horrible to have a defined ajna and defined head, blah, 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 because they think it feels like how they experience their openness. But you know what? Most of the time, I don't even think. It's empty. It's not even just all the time going. Sometimes it's horrible and I get really pressure and it's like, wow. But this is, I don't know, maybe 3 times a month when there's some big things coming, or I don't know. But most of the time it's empty. It feels like this is doing its job. It's like this TV that almost every family has at home that is always there on in the kitchen somewhere and nobody pays attention. It's almost like this.
Mm-hmm. It's just another element in the movie, another thing happening, like, oh, hey, it's sunny outside today, or it's raining and cloudy outside today. Oh, hey, I'm thinking this kind of thing, or I'm feeling this kind of way.
Yeah.
Like, as an emotional being, getting in touch with no truth in the now, clarity over time, and having encounters and experiences with people to be conscious with that experiment. It's really profound and interesting. I've been living here in New York, place we call the Nematon Mountain.
Okay,
It's
cool.
it's a local nonprofit organization where we do like sustainable farming, and we have a apothecary for herbs and working with plants, and we're working in the garden and all these different things, and we have community events. And so I've been around, say, 2 people, both of which are open ego, open emotional people. And I've been here for like a little over 2 years now. And, like a good 1-3, really testing the limits of all the foundations as usual. It's been really a magical experience of both some of the most profound frustrations and deepest satisfactions, and being able to appreciate those little things on one side or the other and get to see it happen. And there's something so beautiful and magical about trusting the body and making its own decisions, and being around other people who are also doing their best to follow that experiment.
Yeah.
There's like this space that opens up where it's like beyond what we imagine, beyond the scripts we could write with our own minds. There's a story unfolding, and
Exactly.
it seems marvelous. It seems beautiful. It seems incredible, because like it's been years for me that I've been in the experiment, and it still blows my mind. It's like still here, still okay, we're still going forward. It's not what I thought it would be, you know?
Yeah, for sure not. No. But it's the same for me, you know. Every month I can pay my rent and I have no idea where the money comes from. When I think back, like, where did this, what? How did I do it? No, because I don't care about it anymore in the sense of I don't try to put my focus on, oh, I need to make money. I need to make money. I need to make it's no, it's not my concentration for this. It's my focus. If I mean, I'm not really focused, but if there would be a direction, let's put it like this, it's the direction of being correct. That means, okay, I observe my body. I will see what happens and how my body will react to things, and that's it. And the funny thing is, the more you're aligned to yourself, the better your life will become. And I'm not speaking about, oh, then you will have a villa and blah, blah, blah. No, it's not about that, you know, but you will, your basic needs will be met. That's for sure.
Right. This notion that it literally does not belong to us. Like the fear of, will I survive? How am I going to make it? What do I need to do to keep going to make sure I have babies and our species can continue? Like that was the job of humans in the past. And the job of humans nowadays is to remember and realize we are here to thrive. We're here to live our unique lives. And something I'm seeing about the projector success and what you're describing there is that it's not financial oriented, for example.
Not only.
Because not only, exactly, because I would say finances, money, material, that's the lowest common denominator. It's the very bottom, the basis. Like, yeah, we need it. It's important, but it's the least important thing out of all of it, although it's essential. And then the real success, the right action, that's more like the highest common denominator. That's the factor that goes everywhere and it carries everything to the greatest height.
Yeah. It's, you know, when it's about money, it's not about the money. It's about what would you buy with the money? This is what is necessary. And, you know, you write down 20 things and the last thing is what you really need, so to say. You know, it's not the PlayStation 5, it's not the new car, whatever, you know, it's really the thing that is very, very deep inside of you where you say, actually, I would like to have a blanket. So, you know, I don't know. Something that is usually it's something simple that is easy to achieve, that gives you a completely new comfort for your life, you know, whatever it is. And it can be material. It doesn't necessarily need to be, but it can be, and it's totally fine. You know, I'm not a guy who says, oh, you know, money's bad. Spirit, we are all just spiritual. No, it's not. I'm not. You know, I see it a bit more like Osho. You know, both sides are fine. You know, let's keep a balance between those things.
Osho is such a fun man. It's so funny. Like he could say some of the funniest things. And then also, gosh, at least from my perspective, I can see so clearly how his mind was running the show.
For sure, for sure.
Like,
but yeah, it's money is always an interesting topic.
it is, you know, the material of life in the world. And I just want to check in. How are you with time right now? I don't want to hold you over or anything like that.
I guess like 5 to 10 minutes more and then I'm good.
All right. That's cool. That's cool. That sounds good. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Let's see. Do you have any kind of little story you could share about something that went very different from how you expected?
Well, I can share a story that lead me to the conclusion that I will never make spontaneous decisions again.
Yes.
So I was in my experiment for 1.5 years. And some friends and we gathered up and we met at my father's place because he was closer to the airport, and we felt like maybe we fly somewhere. So let's gather all up there. And my father he has a young spirit, he likes to be with my friends and with me, and we drank a beer and stuff. And in this evening, we just decided, oh, let's fly to Tenerife, let's just book a flight. It's cheap. Let's do it and go all together. And we booked, and it was on the next day on the morning, the flight. I think at 4 or 5 in the morning. And my body suddenly started, after like a few hours later, started to feel uncomfortable. And I was like, maybe I cancel the flight. Maybe you go alone. Maybe I come later, but I feel, no, come on, let's, just do it. What could go wrong? Blah, blah, blah. And okay. Again, I was calm down. I was like, okay, let's try. What can happen? For sure. I can always go back and it's all fine. Then we watched a music video, and in the music video, the plane crashed, and I was like, "You see, this is what is going on. You show me a music video, now this happens." Everything was like alarm, alarm, don't do it, don't do it. I was really like, "What, man?" And so even at the airport, I was really like, "I don't want to go, And I don't know. I was just, I couldn't stay to my own authority. I was still not strong enough, or not even strong. I was still not enough in my experiment, because after a while there was like it's like a switch. You cannot go back. Your genetics take over, so to say, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So, but I wasn't there yet. I wasn't there yet in that moment. So I flew through Tenerife with the plane, blah blah blah, and then I had the next 6 months were horrible. I lost all the savings I had. I got sick. I got back pain. I was crying in a tent alone. Nobody saw me. It was horrible, man. Everybody suddenly turned against me, and it was wow. And that really, I said to myself, okay, I will not make any spontaneous decisions anymore. Obviously, if somebody says, "Hey, would you like to have a tea with me?" This is something else, I can, but even then I take some time. It's like, I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, okay. Because it's not something that will affect me in that depth, but it's bigger things like vacations, relationships, investments, job, career, whatever, I will not do in the now. And I get great offers, come on, if you book it now, I paid even for you. I just recently, I was like, no, this doesn't work for me. And it's not easy, the temptation is, wow, it's always there. But yeah, this is, if I can share something with mental projectors, really, there is no possibility for you to really have clarity in the now about something, no matter how certain you are. It can really harm you physically. It's not just, especially when you are in the experiment, because everything gets a bit more intense, because you sense more, you have more awareness, so it's more painful. If you're numbed down, you won't feel it, but the moment you gain some certain amount of awareness for yourself, oh boy, it's very uncomfortable. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. That's so powerful and profound, because I can't even imagine. That's such a unique situation to be in. Of course, it could only be a projector. Like your kind couldn't have existed before we were receptive like this. Because to have access to certainty and yet no ability to like trust that for yourself, and to not have like a sacral actual authority that's leading the show, and then sometimes, oh, the certainty took over, oh my bad, I can recognize that. But if all you have is certainty in a sea of all kinds of amplification and difference, ooh.
And the certainty is never the leader. You can never follow your certainty. Oh boy, but we are so certain all the time, If I can stand in front of people, I'm pissing myself, and it's like, oh, you look very certain. I was like, what, really? I was scared like hell. It's like, it doesn't matter what I say, you know. I always had this issue. Maybe other mental projectors have this too, but I always had this issue. Whenever I try to be serious, or I mean something serious, people like start laughing. It's like, I meant this seriously. And every time, you know, I wanted to give it a bit of a funny notion, they think it's serious.
Right?
Because it's the certainty that is always vibrating around of the things that I say, you know. It's so funny. But yeah, as you said, it's more like, it's really like, it's like an ocean of possibilities, and there is this fine silver lining. You could see it like, you know, there's these little animals in the water, this, I don't know, amoeba stuff.
Yeah.
And they need to have a specific area in the water. It, you know, a specific pressure, a specific temperature. And so and for sure, they don't make and then they find their right environment. No, it's always a bit up and down. So for me to have this mental aspect, especially with the 6447, because it's sensing circuit, it's a bit to be mental emotional, you know, to be emotionally dwelling with the mind. You know? So there is no truth in it now for me too, you know. It's not. It's just not there. I wish, but you know, how often I went somewhere like, oh, I really don't like this. I was really grumpy, and then I turned home 1 week later. Friends asked me, how was it? Oh, it was wonderful. And my partner's like, are you kidding me? You said it was horrible. I was like, really? Oh, I just need time, you know. I need time to know what it was. How should I know what it is in the moment? In the moment, I'm still somewhere else processing, you know.
Right. It's always in this moment, I'm processing something else. And so then in the next moment, I'm processing this past thing. And oh, now that makes sense. Yeah, that was great. Because, I mean, like, I'm an ego being in a third line with this emotional authority. So, gosh, I've been around people who are very aware, and people who are very, like, paying attention to emotions. And like, if you're an emotional being and someone is seeing the emotions coming through your face, split second, and if they're making some kind of a judgment or a perception of you based on those emotions, based on the lack of truth coming through you, if they identify with and amplify these little expressions, instead of, say, asking a clarifying question, it's a completely different world. Because I could make a facial expression or do a thing or have some kind of a thing going on inside of me that has nothing directly to do with, like, say, what somebody's telling me or what they're sharing with me. And when we have time for this emotional system to actually go through its wave and to go through a few cycles before you even try to pin it down. Because if you get a taste and it's an absolute no, and then you get another taste and it's a, oh yes, I actually need it more than anything. You get another taste and it's like, well, hold on, let me just feel that a little bit longer. It's so important to get a sample of the emotional wave at different points. Like, how do you feel about it now? And how do you feel about it from this perspective? How do you feel about it from that perspective? Yes. And over time, there's this incredibly rich image that is born, so long as we have the patience to breathe with it, to not force it, to not rush it.
Exactly. Time is our friend.
Mm-hmm. So I think we might be coming up with about the end of this conversation, at least. I'm sure we'll probably chat more in the future. I'd like to invite you at this moment to share a little bit about your own projects, what you're working on, and I can include links to your own work stuff down in the show notes so people can find it, and feel free to share about what you're working on.
Basically, right now, I'm working on my second volume of the Human Design Guide. It's a little book on Amazon. First volume is out. I am also working on Bodygraph.io, trying to update it. Right now, I'm working on a kind of famous people library where you can see some famous people for specific configurations. I try to keep it simple, you know. If you are 1-3, you find some 1-3 examples for each type, so you can see, okay, this could fit to this and this could fit there. So you have some research material. Um, Also, I just opened my Gumroad page for the Crack Your Code course. This was a 20-hour in-depth mm, course to learn to decode your own human design chart. So this is not an official, you will not become an analyst, but it is a good foundation to have if you would like to start working with human design, for example. So this is there, and there's many other projects. Secretly, I'm working on a projector book for the last 3 years with a friend together, but this is not done yet. There's many projects, but because I don't have this consistent energy, it just takes time, and you know, um, yeah, I guess that's it for this. I have my Substack where every now and then I post something. A new event is coming up next week for the UK. It's called Client Work 2.0, where I will teach people who work with people, therapists mainly, psychologists and coaches. I will give them the foundation of human design so they can really honor their client, because I think this is very important that they know what they bring to the table and what the other will bring, so they can really have a communication that is respectful and correct, and try to help somebody get rid of their emotions if they are emotional, for example, because this stuff happens in these days because people coach by script and not by sensing. um More I cannot think of right now, but I guess that's already enough. And thank you very much for this invitation. It was
Yeah,
was
it's
nice to talk.
wonderful. Sorry for interrupting, but yeah, it's been wonderful to chat with you. And thank you so much for the work that you do, especially hearing work with therapists or people that are coaching other people. I feel like being able to bring some more awareness into these spaces is it's one of those things that continues to provide more and more benefit. And it's like paying it forward in a way where you and we may never see the full consequences of our actions. And yet, because we're doing something of real value, we know it's going forward in a good way.
I do know, yes.
That's wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing. And thank you to all of you who are watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll catch you on the next one. All right.